Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Moon Knight, Season 1, Episode 6. So, really, this movie, or this episode, I'm not quite sure if I was 100% sold by the episode, but man, was this fun. This is just a fun episode to just kind of finish this up. And that end credit scene, though, it was like, yeah! It was like, this thing that I've been wanting since pilot episode, they gave it to us at the end of this to kind of tell us, like, hey, this is where season 2 is going to go. And a certain rear view mirrored character was like, yes. Like, they've been teasing this and taunting this. And so now we were to go on, and at some point, I was expecting Bushmaster at the end of this, just kind of telling us where the next season is going to go into, or a lot of people were kind of hoping, like me, like Werewolf by Night, or just some other kind of character that can kind of give us some hope for an interesting second season. And so yeah, I hope this second season is going to be big and massive compared to the first, because I'm expecting for there to be a second season here. It would be weird for them to just go on and now just do Moon Knight the movie. What? So next up, eventually down the line of MCU show stuff, besides Doctor Strange, which is gonna be a thing that I'm hopefully gonna see tomorrow. So yeah, we have May the 4th be with you, and they just dropped the Kenobi trailer. So at some point we're gonna get She-Hulk, but we're probably gonna get Kenobi first, and then She-Hulk probably after that. And so She-Hulk, I love She-Hulk. Believe me, I love this character. It's just, I don't know. To me, She-Hulk may feel just like the Hawkeye show, where it just might feel like a waste of my life watching it. But, I like She-Hulk. I'm gonna probably watch that show regardless. Even though I know that it may not be something, I may just go on yeah, why this? Why? But if anything, we also got Thor: Love and Thunder coming down the road. So yeah, just thumbs up excitement. This episode, I want to say I had fun watching this episode. Regardless of because some people may go on and be like, I didn't like the way this ended. I thought it was rushed, or I thought it was it's so weird that the last episode is actually the shortest episode out of all the episodes in this season. I'm like, what? I'm looking at the 44-minute count, and I'm like, shouldn't this be the longest episode out of all of them? But yeah, so overall, for those of you that are kind of coming in on this very last episode to just kind of give my thoughts about this season, this is a bizarre show, but when looking at it, there's also other bizarre Marvel shows. Go on and check out the Fox show Legion. Check out because Legion is actually the first season. I really enjoyed the first season. You can check out Hellstrom. Hellstrom is technically a Marvel character that deals with kind of conjuring and exorcisms and stuff like that. So if you kind of supernatural horror kind of things, check out Hellstrom. I believe that might still be on Hulu. Or you might want to go on and check out Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger is a Marvel show that actually is it's pretty decent. I watched the first season, and it isn't reviewed on here. Eventually, at some point, I should go on and maybe figure out how to just kind of, or figure to just go on and just re-review that show, because actually it's a decent show. that and like the Netflix show Mortals is actually pretty good. But anyways, so Moon Knight. Within this episode, we of course have Moon Knight, who is to go from being dead towards the last episode to now somehow or another being like brought back to life, to then have to transition into having to take down a much more powerful hero and Amet, who has risen. And it seems that Moon Knight is kind of like outgunned here, or it feels like he probably won't be able to win this fight, but it seems that he is to have some help in some kind of forms in this episode. Not only does it seem that Mark and Steven are much more like fluid characters that are kind of mixed together more so in this episode, which I thought was really cool. But then we have something interesting going on with Layla in this episode, and and I don't want to be too. I don't want to go on and say too much about that for those of you that haven't watched this episode yet. But when I get into spoilers, we'll go into that a little bit further. Really, at the end of this, like, I thought it would have been like kind of the way that they almost ended this episode in a couple of ways. I thought like that was going to actually be the ending of this season. In my mind, kind of the way they kind of like played around with some of the stuff here, like I thought that that was going to be how they were going to at some point end this season, and so I was kind of pleased about that. Like the stuff that happens at the very end with like Steven, like right around when like Steven like wakes up and all that kind of like all that around that point, like I kind of figured it would be like that. So with that said, let's go on to I don't think there's much I can tee up. Like really, this episode is pretty straightforward. So I think I should just go on and just go into spoilers. So yeah, let's go into it. Let's go into that double five time territory because it's about that time yet again to go into this. Disney Plus, or if thus you don't have Disney Plus, like maybe you don't have the affordability, you can go through a number of reviews that I've gone through in possibly recent time that isn't in a Tubi or Netflix movie, and you'll see a list of just all these apps that you can dare in fact watch anything for free. But yeah, so with that said, let's just go into spoilers about Moon Knight, because this is only a 44-minute episode. It's very short compared to all the others. So let's go out of our way to go into spoilers. So in the beginning of this episode, we have, of course, just reminding people Mark is dead, and so of course we have it where Haro is dragging Mark's body to try to get the Amit statue, and is to apologize to Mark and Steven and whoever the heck else is in there in his body for having to kill him. But like this was like a necessary evil, so to speak. So they go on and they get Amit, and so we have Haro, who is to power up his staff to the point of him being able to go on, and now he can easily judge people a lot quicker than the whole kind of rocking back and forth of this staff. And so I'm like, well, I would have liked it a little bit more if Haro would have actually had like put on the suit kind of thing. But when you kind of think about it, like if Moon Knight is to be like invulnerable, and then Hero is to be like the same thing. Like they would just be like no one could really win that battle. So yeah, so we go on and we have, of course, Amit, or we have, of course, Hero with Amit, and so they are to go on and drive off to make it to where they can get to Cairo to get to the pyramid of Giza so they can go on and try to resurrect Amit here. So Layla is to go and try to wake up Mark, not realizing that Mark is dead, but then Layla has to realize that he, of course, is dead. And so Layla decides to go on and go with Hero, blending in with his people. So Hero at some point is to be like blocked at this border to go on to where he needs to go. And that's, of course, when Hero gets out, is to go on and use his staff to then judge all these people. And some souls end up descending or ascending. And there is to be one guard that is to align himself with Hero. And Hero is like, oh, well, this is a good man. And so he takes his walkie and chucks it because, like, you won't need that anymore because you're going to be with me. So Layla is all of a sudden like grabbing this knife and thinking that she's going to go after Hero, and Tourette is to appear within this dead body to then tell Layla like, hey, like Hero right now is far too strong. You can't just go on and just take him down that way. If anything, like Mark has said some very like nice things about you, and maybe you can go on and be my avatar, and maybe I can go on and help you out that way. Layla wants nothing to do with being an avatar for anybody. And so we have it where Layla is to go on and ask, it's like, well, hey, where is like Khonshu? So I can hope that Khonshu is gonna somehow help me out. And so like Layla is to go to this pyramid with Hero anyways. Hero is to go on and quickly make mincemeat of all these avatars because a lot of them haven't really gone on and had much of any field experience. So a lot of these avatars were like quickly wiped out because all of them were judges and not really like executioners, meaning that a lot of them like would just sit in this pyramid and that's all they do. So Hero like easily wiped them all out. So Layla's going on and trying to desperately find where Khonshu is, and is to take this statue or this little figure and breaks it. So we have it, of course, where Khonshu is asking Layla, it's like, well, hey, like, how about like you be my avatar like temporarily, so that we can take down Hero? And Layla's like, no. Like, I'm not going to be teaming up with anybody. I'm not going to be anybody's avatar. No, not going to happen. So Khonshu is like, well, okay, fine. So we now have Mark Spector. Mark Spector is in the field, the field of reeds, and we have it where like Mark is all of a sudden like going and talking to Tourette, and like mentioning about like, well, hey, like, but what about Steven? Like, why isn't he here? And Tourette is saying like, well, Steven is in the doubt or the dot, Duat, and so he's stuck in, I guess, what would be like the kind of the middle, uh, like not quite heaven, not quite hell. He's just kind of stuck in the sand. And so Mark is like, well, like, that doesn't seem right for me to just go on and make it to heaven and Steven's still stuck there. Like, well, like, I'm just going to go on and find him because that's the right thing to do. And Tourette is like telling Mark, it's like, well, you don't know what you're like, you don't know, you don't realize what you're doing. And Mark is just, of course, as defiant as he always is. So Mark goes back to go on and find Steven just kind of in the sand. And so Mark is starting to talk to Steven, like mentioning how, like, he's like not whole without Steven, and that if anything, like, Mark has been saved by Steven like a number of times for kind of taking like a brunt of a lot of stuff. And so, like, also having like Hero bringing up that whole Roland thing, and that at some point, if Amet would have been free so many years earlier, they would have gone on and been able to save Roland, because the only X factor of that whole equation would have really been Mark. And that maybe they would have gone on and gotten rid of Mark, so Roland would have been able to be saved. That's kind of like the interesting dialogue in the later part of the episode. But anyways, so Steven and Mark. Mark all of a sudden is starting to crackle and starting to become like Clayman, kind of like how Steven is. But at some point we go on and have both Steven and both Mark touch this heart, and the heart kind of glows. And then all of a sudden, like, both of them are to be like unchained from this sand, or kind of stuck into this sand, and all of a sudden this door opens for them to exit. So Mark and Steven are like, hey, let's make it to this door. Like, if anything, we'll probably still be in a body that does have a bullet hole in it, but like, think about like before, when Khonshu was to save Mark from certain death. So Mark and Steven are running to this door, and so they go through the door, and while that is happening, all of a sudden there's this big batch of sand that is like coming as like a weird, goofy, kind of like, you know, like when you have like a snowy mountain and like the snow starts to crumble, like a weird sand avalanche that is to kind of come and like as if it's like a wave trying to hit both of these characters. And I know that was a weird explanation, but like you'll get it through the visuals of the episode. And all of a sudden, Tourette, I'm still having troubles pronouncing it, even though they actually pronounce it in the episode. She comes in with the boat that she has, and she just like smashes through all of this sand, and is to mention that Osiris is a real softie, and that he wants to give both Mark and Steven a chance. So they both run through the door, and so they get back into this body, they wake back up. And so once Mark is to wake back up, Khonshu is to connect with Mark and Steven and become Moon Knight again. And so now they're like tons and tons of miles away from Cairo, and Steven and Mark are asking Khonshu, it's like, wait a minute, like, how exactly are we gonna get to Cairo, like, when we're here? Because we have to go to make it to that pyramid, because Hero is causing all kinds of chaos because he's going at the top of this pyramid, and he's just starting to use his like staff as if he's freaking Gandalf. You shall not pass. And he's just spiriting everybody away. And he's going on and taking all these certain people and either making him like ally with him or die in front of him, technically. And so Haro's followers is going on and telling like, yeah, we must judge everybody. Let's judge them. And so they're grabbing their hands. They're sucking the life out of everybody. And so like everybody's just killing everybody. And could you just imagine how this event could possibly be connected, even though it's not, but still, could you see how this event may somehow get connected to the MCU? And wouldn't that be freaking awesome? Or could you just imagine how this one moment could eventually bubble or affect the following season? Where, like, you can go on and find out that one person was to get killed off and, like, spirited away, and that was to cause other person to want revenge and come after Moon Knight or come after anyone who is responsible for this. And that could be a really interesting season of how that could possibly get connected, because I'm sure that might be a possibility. And I would thoroughly enjoy something like that, to just kind of give us like a reconnection to this first season, and that would be like really cool. So, we of course have Moon Knight that is kind of flopping his wings, and of course is to make it to like try to have a showdown with Hero. And so Moon Knight is trying to go on and fight with Hero, and we have it where Layla is talking to Osiris as Osiris is about to die. He's like, ugh. So Layla is asking Osiris, is like, well, hey, what do we need to be able to take Hero down? And we have Osiris that is to mention that they need more avatars to go on and like go up against this threat. And so Layla is just like, well, because he said it. Layla's to finally go on and give up to Waret, and she is to say like, okay, like we'll have a temporary avataring thing. Well, I'll be your temporary avatar, but like preface it on temporary. So we go on and we already have like Tourette that's like inside of Layla and is like kind of using her body and talking. I was like, oh my god, this is so fun. Because we have Tourette that goes through all these like dead bodies anyways. But then like she goes into like Layla and is to say like, oh, okay, so like do you want to get suited up? And so straight up we have Layla, and I know a lot of people are going to make these comparisons. Layla looks like an Egyptian Falcon. Like she looks like the Falcon, or Captain America for a lot of people. And so I think it was kind of interesting the one point where Layla was saving these women in this vehicle, and the one girl turns to this girl and she's like, well, are you an Egyptian superhero or hero? And she's like, I am. And then she goes on and like kicks everybody's butt. And I was like, yeah, like, so we may not have gotten some time to marinate with this character, with Layla being an avatar character, but like we get to see her in action, and that was pretty cool for the way to kind of try to wrap this up. So now we have it where, of course, since Haro is using his Gandalf staff, you shall not pass, to go on and suck everybody in, now Amet, who is to go on and to have talked to Haro and said that it's like, well, like it seems that you aren't perfectly balanced, and we of course have Haro that's like, well, I have a number of followers who are perfectly balanced, and so like whatever you need me to do to eventually become your avatar, I will do it, because Haro was to put glass in his shoes, hoping that that would work to try to balance him out, but that just wasn't good enough. And so, even to the point of like, at the very end of this episode, where like Haro was to have glass in his shoes and you just see the blood print, I'm like, why haven't we seen that throughout the whole show? Like, how is it that this guy is not like basically bleeding to death? Like, this guy has glass in his shoes all the time, and like his shoes aren't like covered in blood every single day. I don't know how that works, but it happens. But anyways, so Haro is to talk to Amet, and Amet is to go on and say, it's like, well, like, I think like we can work something out. And Khonshu is trying to persuade Amet to not go on and work with Haro. And Amet is just like, well, like, there had been past where perfectly balanced people had had imprisoned me in the past, so like maybe I need to have an unbalanced person. But so Haro is to get all these people suck their souls within his staff, and then Amet all of a sudden is growing massively, like as if this is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers all over again. Da, 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 da. And so all of a sudden now, since Amet is this like massively skyscrapered alligator, we now have to have Khonshu, that it has to be this big massive version of Khonshu to just battle it out with him and his staff. And so like Amet is just like, why do you fight knowing you fail? And he's like, because I have the choice to. Pa! Pa! And I was like, yeah, like, we just have some kind of just some dialogue that just has to be very generic here. Just enjoy the big, massive battles between the two characters here, like giving us like so much of one of so much of things in one episode. I was like, yeah, like this is like Godzilla, and it's like this, and it's like that. It's like you have all these mixtures of all this stuff within this whole show, and it's bizarre, and it's cool, and it's all of that in a bag of chips. So Mark is to be switching between Mark and Steven here. And so we have the cool part where Layla and Mark are to see one another, and so both Mark and Steven are looking at Layla and like, man, you look gorgeous, you look beautiful, you look marvelous, and this and that. And so I was like, yeah, like Layla looks freaking amazing. Freaking Layla looks so like, dang girl, dang. So Steven is to go on and now show off to Layla, and so he's decking people with his sticks, and Mark is going, so like Mark and Steven keep switching, and it's really cool how we keep getting like these two different Moon Knights. And I'm just waiting for there to possibly be like a mixture of some other things somewhere down the road, which would really be cool to kind of change things up. But so we have Mark and we have Steven, and they have to make their way back to Haro. And so it seems when Layla and Moon Knight are taking on Haro, it still feels that like Haro is pretty powerful, and so like Haro is going on and putting his staff onto Moon Knight's chest and is to try to kill Moon Knight here, and then all of a sudden Moon Knight is just and he all of a sudden like Mark and Steven both fall asleep, and then Mark reawakes, and all of a sudden Haro is down, and a number of people all around them are all down, and we have it to where Layla is like, "What the heck was that?" And Mark is asking Steven, it's like, "That wasn't you, was it? Or that wasn't me? Like, I realize that now that there's something else here." And I'm like, yeah, yes, there is. So, yes, yes, please. So we now have it where Layla is to figure out that she needs to drag Haro to make it back to the pyramid so she can go on and create this spell to fuse Amit with Haro to make him mortal. It's kind of like the end of the Mummy movie, in all honesty, where we have like the Book of the Dead and you have to like kind of read all the spells and Anaxunamun and all this kind of jazz, and like it's been a while since I've seen the Mummy, so I'm just saying random words that I probably remember from that film, and so on and so forth. So we have it where like in a weird like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers like movie where they go on and they have all the Power Rangers like circle around Zordon, and they touch hands, and like Zordon like is to get revived. Like it's kind of the same thing here where Layla and Moon Knight go on and they like touch hands, and then all of a sudden like all of the like Egyptian gods, as they're like quoting these Egyptian words, are to go on and use this spell to put Amit and Haro together, because Amit had gone on and beaten Khonshu. Like you just see like Amit who's dragging Khonshu. It's like, ha 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 ha, like I've beaten him, yeah. And then so Haro and Amit are fused together, and so Amit is mentioning that it's like, well, hey, like even in this body, there's no way you're going to beat me. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, well, there has to be some way to just like resolve this character, because I'm assuming they're just going to keep this character just for this season and then move on to something else. Kind of move on to something that may be I'm thinking Bushmaster, or I'm thinking there's got to be something. There's got to be something big down the line somewhere. There's got to be something interesting, I hope. Would be cool to have eventually had it, the stuff that everybody kind of wanted in the first season to be in the second season. Everybody was like, Ethan Hawke, Dracula, and then no. Ethan Hawke was just Haro. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I know some stuff about some Moon Knight things, but Haro, like what? Like what is this? And so I had to go on and like research the character, and I was like, okay, like it's just a rando character that they just scraped at the bottom of the barrel to find. But I guess when really looking at it, they took that character, realizing that eventually they needed to build somewhere. And so if they took a random character like that in other following seasons, they're gonna go on, and I'm assuming do something more with these characters. But it's kind of sad that like we didn't really do much of anything with the guy who is the Midnight Man. Uh, and I'm sure if we just kind of recast that character, if we still showcase that character, it's I don't know, it's gonna be what it is. I don't think they're gonna re-add him into any other seasons, but it's just kind of disappointing that they did nothing with the Midnight Man. That would have been really cool, but just tossing certain things in there and whatever. But anyways, so we have it where now Hero is to seemingly go on and pretty much be beaten here. And Moon Knight is going to take his weapon out and want to go in to stab into this character to kill him off. And Moon Knight hesitates. Khonshu's like, well, what are you doing? Like, finish him. Like Mortal Kombat style. Fatality. Come on. Yeah, let's do it. And Moon Knight is like, no. Like, you know what? If you want to kill him so bad, you do it. So Khonshu does not go on and kill Hero, but instead, like, we have Moon Knight who asks, because like the fusing of Steven and Mark, like they're kind of intertwined with one another now. So I just want to call him Moon Knight. So Moon Knight, of course, asks for Khonshu to release both Layla and him, and so he grants that. For all of a sudden to have now Moon Knight wake up in the mental hospital. And I'm like, oh my god, like, wouldn't that have been interesting if that's how they just end the show? Where it's like, yeah, you were crazy the whole time, like, and then in the season 2, they open it with just, like, Steven and Mark just kind of playing out these, like, Moon Knight scenarios in this homemade suit that was at this mental hospital, but then like thinking that, oh, he's crazy the whole time, and then we just go right back into like season 2. Like, that would be a really cool way to open up season 2, just thinking like, oh no, yeah, like he was crazy the whole time. But yeah, so we have Mark and Steven who are looking on at Hero, and Hero is still trying to convince Mark and Steven that they're insane. But when Hero gets up, he starts walking away. And Mark and Steven are like, hey, like, you saw that, right? You saw the blood prints. Because every time Hero walked, he walked with blood coming out of his shoes. I'm like, why haven't we seen this before? And so now Mark and Steven are realizing that this is all a dream. And so Steven and Mark are just like, you know what, I think it's about time to just wake up. And so Steven and Mark wake up, and they're back at this room, like in the pilot episode. And I'm just kind of curious if there wasn't any time that passed, or like I was just kind of curious, like how they were going to play this out. Like, is Steven like still fired from that job? Was Mark ever a millionaire? What, like, he was a soldier of fortune, so you would think like he'd be like getting paid somehow or another. Like, is Khonshu flipping the bill for Mark? Like, how is he, like, how does he have this thing called money? Is someone else flipping the bill? Another personality that we're unaware of? Because things. So Steve and Mark are to get out of this bed, and I say that because both of these characters are one person, so they're both talking. So Mark gets out of bed and he realizes that the thing to try to prevent him from sleepwalking is attached to his leg, and he did not realize it. So he tries to get out of bed and he slams onto the ground. And so the sand circle is still there. Everything that is to make possibly Steven aware that he might be sleepwalking, I think he will no longer have any of that stuff continuing on past this, because really, like, he just realizes that now he's quite possibly a schizo. And so what is the point of the whole like sleepwalking thing? Because also when you think about it, Steven and Mark are kind of much more connected than they were before. So I was also like, but it was kind of funny how when Steven was to get out of his dream, he immediately said later Gators before and then woke up from his thing. So is that going to be a thing every single season? He's still going to keep saying just later Gators? It would be funny, but it's just like eventually it would just kind of be like worn out. But I think it was just purposely put into this season. And so we'll see what his catchphrase is for the second season. Because I think a lot of memes are getting made out of later Gators. A lot of people are to end a lot of their reactions, reviews, and whatever and what have you with later Gators. So the end credit scene. We of course have an end credit scene where we find Hiro, who is in this mental hospital, and he is to be dragged out of this mental hospital via some character with this wheelchair. And so this guy is to drag Hiro into this limousine, and we all of a sudden now have Hiro talking to Khonshu, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, like, maybe because now Hiro has a met into him, now that's how both Hiro and Khonshu can have this conversation. So Khonshu is going on and telling Hiro here that he's like, well, hey, like, that whole, like, not killing you thing, like, come to find out, Mark and Steven may not have power over this body, but here's the thing, like, Mark has other personalities that Mark isn't even aware of. And so, Hiro, I would like to introduce you to Jake Lockley. And I'm like, yeah! I was like, yeah! I was like, whoa! Like, yeah! Like, this is what I've been waiting for since pilot episode. I was like, well, where's the Jake Lockley? And the most interesting thing is, the very first thing that we see him is his eyes in the rear view mirror. I'm like, that's how you showcase Jake Lockley and have him be this limo driver, this guy who is to drive people around. I'm like, yeah, like, that's the best way to actually showcase this character. It makes so much sense. Yeah, you're kind of making him seem like Logan, the Logan movie, where like Wolverine is now just driving people with this limo, and we of course have some women in that limo at some points in that film, but especially if you are rated R, folks. But anyways, so Lockley is to come back and is to take his gun and shoot Hiro, and then is to drive off, and I'm like, yeah! That's how you end a show, with just us having like this huge character that we never saw, and they hinted so much so to where there was so many times where they kept freaking showcasing that sarcophagus that was rocking back and forth, and they did that even in this last episode, where I'm like, God, freaking just show it. Tell me what that is. I want to know. Is it going to be Werewolf by Night? No, because it wouldn't have made sense. But still, give me something. Give me a piece of something. Like, come on. But yeah, so hopefully in season 2, uh, there is so many interesting things going on in season 2. I hope, fingers crossed, and all of that jazz. So yeah, I talked longer than the episode even was, so I'm just gonna get out of here. This episode was great. I'm gonna try to get out of here because it's 44 minutes the episode. I'm gonna try. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Hopefully I mentioned everything because I'm gonna try to get out of here. Bye. 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 Bye.